Hi everyone, my name is Curtis and I'm 35 years old. I live with my mother and she is ruining my life. You will ask me, why would not I move away from her if things are that bad? It's not that simple, and you will understand why when I tell you my story. Here it is. When I was born, my father decided it was too much for him, and one day he just never came back home. This is the only thing I ever heard about him. So my mother was raising me all by herself. I was her only child, and she dedicated all her time and love to me alone. In fact, I believe she was giving me too much love, so much that I almost got drowned in this love. Sometimes all this love and care was just getting beyond all possible limits. She would comfort me and take me home while I was happy playing with other kids. And she would say, "It is more safe to play at home. No kid would do any harm to you at home." She was overprotective and over-controlling. My mother always knew and she always told me what I needed most and what I had to do in just any situation. What food was healthy and delicious, which toys were good to play with, and what children I should make friends with. Don't run too fast or you'll fall. Don't play games with this kid. He'll do bad things to you. She would always guide my every step. When I became a teenager, I began to hide my secrets from my mother. I learned how to tell lies, how to downplay certain things, and avoid uncomfortable questions. This was when my mother began to ruin my life. In fact, she's been doing it since my birth, but it was not so apparent to me before. It all started when a girl in my class got her eyes on me, and she decided to come and see me at home. My mother also happened to be at home that day. She said she got a one-day leave from her work. I still can't figure out how she found out. Then she kept coming to my room under different pretexts. For example, to bring us some tea or sandwiches. Then she suddenly said that she had to clean my room. Finally, she brought us an album with my baby pictures, and they were really embarrassing. To make it even worse, she decided to tell the girl a couple of stupid stories from my childhood. One of them was about how I used to have a crush on a famous female singer, and I said I'd marry her when I grew up. Another time, I saw a couple kissing on TV, and I started kissing my bunny toy to practice kissing. My mother saw me and she took a picture of me kissing my toy. When she told us the story, I was feeling so embarrassed that I just wanted to disappear. On top of that, she showed this embarrassing picture to the girl. Finally, the girl left and never came back to me again. She also told her friends about the story in every detail. Now the entire class was pointing at me and my classmates were making fun of me. That's when I got a nickname, Mama's Boy. Then there was another occasion that once again proved my nickname. Once I went to the school cafeteria and I accidentally stepped onto Henry Johnson's foot. Henry was a local hothead and he told me he was going to beat the hell out of me after the classes. When we met for the fight, my mother suddenly popped out of nowhere holding a broom in her hands. She looked mad. She screamed and she broke the whole crowd. She even hit Henry a couple of times. Naturally, I became an outcast after this story. The only thing that saved me from further shame was that Henry's parents threatened to sue my mother for her aggressive behavior. So I changed school after that. As you may have seen, my relationships with girls haven't been much of a success. Every time when a girl came to visit me at home and met my mother did something embarrassing again and again, and my relationship with the girl would get broke. So I stopped inviting girls to my place at all and was meeting them in public places. But that did not help me either. My mother would find out about my new girlfriends and she would follow them and tell them embarrassing things about me so that they would dump me. It seems that she was always watching me and probably she really did. Years later, I talked to one of my school ex-girlfriends. and I found out that my mom followed her and threatened her and forced her to dump me. I then called my other ex-girlfriend, and she confirmed that my mom threatened her too. My mom told her that she had contacts in the police, and she would lock her up in jail, and then she forced the girl to dump me. That's how it was. When I graduated from my high school, I decided to move away from my mom as far as I could, and I almost succeeded. I moved to another city, found a job, hired a small apartment, and even started dating a new girlfriend. But then, suddenly, my mom called me and she told me she had a heart attack, so I had to return home and take care of her. I was always feeling guilty for her. Later, when I tried to move away from her again, there was always an emergency with her. She would fall down and twist her ankle, burn herself while cooking, or just feel sick. Once, when I finally decided that I no longer wanted to put up with her bizarre tricks, I told her I had enough of it. She immediately burst out crying and told me she was seriously ill. Doctors examined her and they said she had only 1 more year to live. She even showed me the medical conclusion. 2 years later, however, I found out she faked it in the same way she faked the illness itself. She asked a doctor she knew to issue a fake medical diagnosis for a good sum of money. At that point, I finally understood this was beyond all possible limits. My mother was manipulating me and she constantly made me feel guilty for no reason. She would ask me to leave her alone to die and end her suffering. That would make me feel guilty again, and I would finally stay home time with her. I even had to take online classes at my college since they kicked me out of my offline class because of my mom's manipulations. Once, when I had a very important exam coming the next day, my mother called me from an outdoor telephone and introduced herself as a college employee. She told me my exam had been postponed. I didn't recognize her voice. She changed her voice while she talked to me. Besides, I had almost no sleep for a couple of days as I was preparing for my exams, so I just felt too tired to suspect anything. As a result, one day I got a call from the dean's office and they told me they expelled me from college for missing the exam and for academic failure. I was left with no other choice but to take online classes instead. At the moment, I'm working online from home. I'm a programmer. I used to have an office job before, but my mother didn't like it. She arranged things to get me fired. Once she came to my office to bring me lunch, or at least she said so. She asked the security officer to let her in to leave me the food in my office. I was out at the meeting, and she planted a can of spray paint right by my table. Then she stained my boss's car in our indoor parking lot with the same paint, and then gave him an anonymous call and told him it was me who did it. Of course, they immediately fired me with a scandal. Since that moment, I have only been working from my home. As the next step, my mother retired and left her job too to be closer to me and keep everything under control. Once, a friend of mine had a birthday, and I got my mother's permission to go to the party, though she kept calling me every half an hour. At the party, I met a very pretty girl. Her name was Sarah. I liked her very much. At first, we were meeting in secret while my mother was away at the grocery store or at the doctor's. I was scared at the thought of them meeting each other, but Sarah insisted on it, so I eventually gave up. When Sarah and my mom finally met, my mother began to embarrass us like she always did, and she showed her my baby pictures and told Sarah stories about me. To my surprise, Sarah took it quite well and with humor, and she said she was now in love with me even more. Soon, Sarah moved to our place and she started living with us. My mother, as expected, tried every opportunity to drive us apart. Whatever Sarah did, my mother wasn't happy with it. She tried to insult and humiliate Sarah and force her to leave. However, surprisingly, Sarah stayed on and would not leave. Once, my mother brought a stray wild cat from the street, and she threw it at Sarah. Sarah was scared and she screamed loudly as she got several serious scratches and wounds. When I told my mother that she should apologize to Sarah for insulting behavior, she grabbed at her heart and said she did not feel well and it was Sarah who put a spell on her. Later on, my mother secretly stole newspapers and doormats from our neighbors' houses, and then she accused Sarah of doing it. Of course, no one believed her. However, she strongly insisted it was Sarah to blame, and she said that Sarah kept all these things under her bed. She invited her neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, to Sarah's room, and yes, they found newspapers and doormats right there. I couldn't believe my own eyes, as I knew too well it was again my mother's mischiefs and manipulations. After that, Sarah finally moved away from us, as her relationships with our neighbors were totally broken at that point. We decided to meet each other in a quiet hotel not far from the city center. Sarah was keeping on until the very last, but my mother got a final ace to play. She showed me a video recording of Sarah cheating on me. Later, I found out that my mother hired a professional actress and she stole Sarah's clothes and her wig while she was sleeping. Sarah used to wear a blonde wig, but she didn't want to change her own black hair. In this video, I saw a woman who looked exactly like Sarah, wearing her clothes and a blonde wig, and she was kissing another man. My mother presented it to me as a proof that Sarah is cheating. When Sarah saw this video recording, she finally gave up and broke up with me. After a while, Sarah started dating my best friend Mark. One day, when Mark and I were walking down the street, a policeman stopped us. He pointed at Mark, stopped him, and took him away to the police station. They also asked me to come in for questioning and the investigation. When they found out I had no idea of what was going on, they told me everything about Sarah. Sarah Mitchell turned out to be a professional fraudster. Her strategy was to find the right victim, usually some unattractive men or mama's boys. Sarah made each of these guys fall in love with her, and when they were hooked, Sarah would get access to their bank accounts, rob them all of their money, and disappear. After each of these cases, Sarah would change her appearance, get a new fake ID and necessary documents, and move to another city with a good fortune, while the poor guy was left without a single dollar left. Although my mother was damaging and ruining my life, she saved me from a very big problem this time, even though she didn't know anything about Sarah's criminal background. Sometimes I think, what would I be doing if Sarah hadn't broken up with me? Perhaps I would be living in slums with no money left, but I would still not be free from my mother's control. That's my story, folks. I still live with my mother who keeps ruining my life, but I still love her no matter what. And what kind of relationship do you have with your parents? Leave your comments below. Please subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you liked this video.